What did he say? Oh,
Okay, very long.
okay, it's 5 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order of Point Edward Village Council on June the 25th, 2024. First of all, as a land acknowledgement, we acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as Treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Is there anyone with pecuniary interest?
No.
If it comes up later, then they mention it then. We'll move to public meetings. And I'm going to ask Jared, our winner, to step forward, please. We need to invite him in the bar? No, we just did.
So just to be clear, this is for a rezoning for the property at 170 Exmouth Street, zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment. And that's what we're, yeah.
Okay. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Hand, members of council, members of the public. My name is Jared Preston. I'm the planner for the County of Lambton. I'm just going to share my presentation for application number Z01-2024 on 170 Exmouth. So we're looking at two applications. Today we're looking at an official plan amendment and we're looking at a zoning bylaw amendment. The initial proposal today is to permit 2 new one-story office buildings. So what I have listed here is the first office building is going to be approximately 8,000 square feet, so about 743 square meters. And the second office building will be about 10,000 square feet, 929.3 square meters. And the applicant for this project today is Alex Jobsman. He's represented by Ken Matten and Story Samwise. The next slide just shows a site plan drawing of the office development. So as you can see on the left side is one of the future office buildings, the 10,000 square foot one, and then the second one on the right side is the 8,000 square foot office building. So I'm going to go specifically into the OPA application. So currently the site is designated special tourist commercial. This currently does not permit the use of office buildings. So an official plan amendment was needed to allow us to allow the office buildings. So as planning staff, we proposed a site-specific policy to the Point Edward official plan to allow the office buildings only on this property. And I'm going to go into the zoning bylaw amendment application. So similar to the OPA, the current commercial 2.2, so the C2.2 H1 zone does not permit office buildings. So planning staff has proposed to create a new zone called commercial 2.2.1, C2.2.1, H1 zone. And this is being proposed to permit the use of those 2 office buildings. I'm going to go just in a little bit of specifics here to talk about what the H1 holding provision stands for on that zone. So there's a provision in section 3.8 BI of the Village of Point Edward zoning bylaw, which states to ensure that ultimate development is serviced by the Point Edward sewage treatment plant. The H symbol shall be removed only after an agreement has been entered into with the corporation for the design and construction of works for directing sanitary sewage flows to the Point Edward sewage treatment plant. So as part of the zoning bylaw amendment, staff have added a provision in for this new zone that municipal servicing in this zone may be provided by the city of Sarnia until such time as the village is able to provide said services. As a requirement of the Planning Act, I did visit the site and took some site photos. This is the view of the 170 Exmouth. This is right on the corner of Front and Exmouth intersection. The second photo is from the Front Street walking pathway. The third photo shows the 402 on-ramp. And this is the figure 4 is some of the commercial uses that you see on Exmouth Street. This aerial diagram shows the current designation for the site. So as you can see in the red lines there and the yellow highlight, that's 170 Exmouth on the corner of Front and Exmouth Street. And it's designated a special tourism commercial. And the next aerial diagram below shows the current zoning C2.2 H1 on 170. And that will, again, that's being proposed to be rezoned to that new C2.2.1 zone. So upon review of this application, planning staff found that the proposed OPA and ZBA are consistent with applicable policies, the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, the county and village official plans, and zoning bylaw. I just want to note that if these proposed amendments are approved today by council, the applicant is required to get site plan approval prior to issuance of the building permit. I want to add that adequate and appropriate landscape to the proposed, there was adequate and appropriate landscaping to this proposed development, which will provide access for vehicles to enter and exit off Exmouth Street. And there will be adequate off-street parking and loading spaces for this site. As a condition for this application, a traffic impact brief was submitted by the applicant to address traffic concerns on Exmouth and Front Street. City of Sarnia engineering staff have confirmed with the county that they have no issue with the traffic impact study. There is also a capping plan report requirement as part of the record of site condition, which has been submitted to address the concerns of lead that were found in the site, which is a former railroad site. This site is located in a settlement area, so it is a brownfield site, and the province has encouraged these areas to be a focus of growth and development. Planning staff are making a recommendation that Point Edward Council adopt OPA 4 of 2024, an amendment to the Village of Point Edward 2021 official plan to add a site-specific policy to the special tourist commercial designation to permit these two office buildings. And planning staff also makes the recommendation that Point Edward Council adopt bylaw 14 of 2024, a bylaw to amend the Village of Point Edward comprehensive zoning bylaw 25 of 2012, to rezone the subject site, the new proposed zoning, commercial 2.2.1, C2.2.1 H1 zone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jared. Okay, questions? Start at this end.
I just have a question about the corner of Exmouth and Front Street. If I'm coming from Point Edward and I've got to make a left turn and then a left turn into that, nobody saw any concerns about traffic there?
If I may, I think that should be a question answered by the consultants, traffic that did the traffic impact study.
Okay.
Jared's not really qualified to answer that question.
Okay. Are they?
I believe they're online.
Oh, okay.
They were. So, and they'll, like, the proponent will make a presentation after
Okay.
Jared's done, and I think that's the appropriate time to ask that question.
Maybe I'll save my questions to the end.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want
I have a
now
question.
or?
No, for Jared.
Okay.
So Jared, I wrote this down, but at the end you did sort of clarify it. So if we make this change, this includes the former Homes Found property and it will get the same rezoning, right?
No.
Through the mayor, this is the property 170 Exmouth that is in question today is not the same property as the Foundry site.
But will we have to make the same rezoning if they bring forward an application to develop that property? Because right now it is special tourist commercial, right?
If they bring forward an application and their proposal meets that current zoning, they will not have to rezone.
Okay.
It all depends on what the use that they're specifically proposing.
And the reason I'm confused is one of your slides shows that Holmes Foundry was C 2.2 H1, same as 170.
Yeah, so those are both, through the mayor, those are both zoned C 2.2 H1 in the current zoning bylaw. It is the one on 170 beside the Holmes Foundry.
Yep.
That is being proposed to rezone, because right now that current zoning does not permit office buildings.
Okay, thank you.
So that new zone will look different on the 170 property. But the Foundry property will still have the current C 2.2. It's only this property on 170 that's changing to the new proposed zoning.
Okay, thank you. This is a question to Jared through you, Mayor Hand, but he may defer to Jim. Why can't we provide the affluent services for that building? And why are we thinking of allowing them to go to the city of Sarnia?
So I think the biggest concern we have is the amount of effluent that would be created at the site may not be enough to create enough flow to support a pumping station that would be required. There's been no study done to that effect, but that's just kind of the general thought, is the amount of effluent that's generated would not support a pumping station there. Now, I talked to the environmental services manager and he said there are smaller pumping stations that we could put in. But if we want to look into that further, it would take a little bit of investigation to determine if that could actually happen or not.
Okay, and then my final question to Jared. In the plan, what happens to the walking trail that's there now? Does it remain? Does it get relocated?
Through the mayor, at this time, the walking trail does remain. Unless there are changes made at the site plan
Okay,
stage. Thank you.
Nothing. In the provision, the H1 provision, where Sarnia can provide the services, is that something that's been discussed with the city of Sarnia, or is no possible? Like, allowing Sarnia to service the site?
Through the mayor, I wasn't part of those discussions with the city of Sarnia for the servicing, so I'm gonna leave that to the members of the developers to answer that question. Thank you.
Okay, I have the same concerns about the pumping issue. And Jason isn't here tonight to be able to ask him, but I just wanted to know why it went directly to Sarnia without a discussion first with the village. And my next one is a concern around, which isn't talked about in the presentation, but the proposed development at Holmes Foundry, which is something like 1,900 units, and there's nothing mentioned about traffic. They've got traffic here and traffic there.
Again, I think that's a question that traffic consultant should
Okay.
address.
Yeah, thank you. So that's my concern. Is okay.
So if there's no questions for Jared, then we should ask them.
An opposition? Anyone that?
No,
Sorry,
the proponent presentation.
proponent. Sorry, sorry. Okay, thank you, Jared.
thanks,
Thank you
Jared.
for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Come on here.
Actually, if
Yes,
you could go to the slide, please. So you could maybe just introduce yourself, please.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
To the mayor, members of council, my name is David French and I'm a consultant with Story Samuels Planning, based out of Chatham. And in early 2023, we were retained by Alex Johnson to assist with the Planning Act approvals, which you will be considering this evening. So I guess the comments that I would like to provide is that the process from the onset has been very comprehensive and not always smooth because we are in fact dealing with 4 different effectively approval authorities. One is the Village of Point Edward, 2 is the County of Lambton, 3 is the City of Sarnia, and 4 is the Province of Ontario dealing with the MTO constraints surrounding the 402. So in communicating with all 4 of these agencies and taking comments, we were able to come up with a site plan which addressed all of the comments that were received from these agencies, as well as provide supporting studies, which were ultimately received and accepted, the results accepted by village staff, county staff, Sarnia staff, and provincial MTO staff. So we do, at least we should have a traffic consultant online who's based out of Leamington. So I would defer to him to answer any specific traffic questions. But again, I would like to respectfully suggest that the process that was followed was set out by both the Planning Act as well as those agencies, including village staff. So we appreciate the work that went into the report by Mr. Preston. We concur with his recommendations. And finally, I would just like to reiterate that it's our opinion that the applications are indeed consistent with the provincial policy statement. And upon the approval of the requested official plan amendment, will indeed conform to the village official plan and subsequent zoning bylaw. So aside from that, I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Thank you.
So I think this is, if I may, the appropriate time if there are questions. I believe the gentleman was just on the screen. That is there was a gentleman there anyway. I believe he's probably the traffic consultant. So if there are questions about traffic, now is probably the time to ask them.
Yeah, my question was just regarding the intersection of Exmouth and Front Street. If I'm gonna patronize one of these buildings, I'm gonna come from Front Street and make a left turn on Exmouth and then try to make a quick left. And I just wonder how that's going to be dealt with.
Yes, happy to comment through you, Madam Mayor.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
And I just wonder how that's going to be dealt with.
That's not what I want.
Yes, happy to comment through you, Madam Mayor.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Just
Sounds like there's a delay.
We can't hear you through the
Zoom hookup.
yeah, we can't hear you through the Zoom hookup. Are you able to call me?
I am able to call you.
Oh, we can hear you now. Yeah, we're good now.
Yep, go
Okay.
for it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question. Regarding the eastbound left turn, so let me just maybe break it down for you as far as what was studied. So when we scoped out the terms of reference for this project with the Ministry of Transportation, we identified really what we would be looking at in terms of the site, its constraints, and they identified that everything was to their liking. We also identified which scenarios we'd be exploring, and really all that they required from us was the existing, about comparing the existing scenario with the existing plus site generated traffic scenario. And what that does, it simply tells us what is the effective traffic impact of this development as a standalone site, because that is of particular interest to the Ministry of Transportation as it is to the other road authorities. So when we explored that and we evaluated the left turn into the site, because the volumes on Exmouth Street are actually relatively low, like I'm talking in the ballpark of like the through movement is just a little bit over 2 vehicles per minute. The right turn movement during the critical peak hours is also just over 2 vehicles per minute. So because those volumes are relatively low, what we see here is that the eastbound left 95th percentile queue, and that's just a fancy way of saying that 95% of the time during the critical peak hour, the left turn queue will be less than 0.1 vehicle lengths, which means that the vast majority of the time there's going to be no queue. That vehicle is going to want to turn left, find a gap, and go. And so the queue that develops is no longer than 1 vehicle length.
I have
Follow up?
one more question. I think I know the answer to it, but is there any way that you could access the 402 exit? There's an advanced green at Front Street. And if you made that left turn, would there be any possibility that a right turn could be made into that property from that MTO exit lane?
So the MTO determines, basically is able to comment on the number of accesses relative to its corridor. Anything within 800 meters of the MTO's corridor, they have the right to comment on. And so they identified that they would not allow any additional access onto Front. However, Exmouth was acceptable.
Deputy Mayor Grimes?
So I hear what you're saying with the traffic volume, and I see that you've moved the driveway as far away from the intersection as possible in the plan to help deal with that backup. And the amount of traffic turning in, given the proposed use now, is fairly low. What happens when the second building goes in and it's a more popular tenant, and there's higher traffic flow? Are you still confident that it'll be a safe section of roadway?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So as far as the tools in the tool bag for the respective road authority, so in that particular case, I guess the city of Sarnia, but when it comes to that 4-lane cross section, that is actually overkill with respect to the amount of capacity that's required. So in these kinds of cases, I would typically recommend what's called a road diet, where you take a 4-lane cross section, convert it to a 3-lane cross section. Maybe what's left over you give to bike lanes or something like that. That would introduce a left turn into the site, and then they would simply enter there, wait for a gap, and go. So overall, no. Even if traffic volumes develop, like there's a lot of traffic that's required to get to that threshold where 4-lane cross section is required.
And just to follow up through the mayor, a lot of developments that are this close to an intersection prohibit like left turns out into that, because somebody's coming around that corner off Front Street at a clip, and then somebody turns left out of the parking lot. Many put a median or signage. Was that considered? And if so, why was it dismissed?
So it's not required for this particular development. As development potentially in the area increases, just like in other parts of Ontario, where you allow these kinds of accesses relative to, in terms of proximity relative to an intersection, you would simply identify that if and when the time comes, the road requires reconstruction, that a median will be placed and they'll be restricted to a right in, right out control. That's very typical.
And then my final question, you did the traffic study based on today, and I think a 5-year. I think you're aware, it's public knowledge that the property next door has plans for significant people and traffic. Was that fully considered, the amount of traffic that will come in and out of that property and the impact it could have on that intersection?
Yeah, so as far as, like, again, when we scope these things out, we scoped it with the respective road authorities. And when we looked at this site, we're interested in what is the individual traffic impact of this site. To consider other area developments, they have to be in a various state of, security, in terms of for us to be able to estimate how many trips are generating all this different stuff. So we can't apply any estimates to something that is unknown. That being said, for something like this, what the best practices would say, you force the developers to talk, to provide reciprocity between their developments. You allow that access where it is today so that that development can occur. And then what you would typically do is you would ensure that there is some sort of interconnectivity, so that if and when you restrict that to a right in, right out, that you've already provided the reciprocity between those sites to allow those vehicles. make a left out maybe further down the way.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Through, Madam Mayor to, Deputy Mayor Grimes, just to, speak a little bit more to that. Again, through our pre-consultation process, that concept of, shared access or reciprocity was brought up, both by the city of Sarnia, because Exmouth effectively is their road, as well as village staff. And as a result of that, the site plan, although it does not show it, fully makes appropriate allowances for connection point or points into the Foundry property. So that in the future, again, at the time the pre-consultation took place, even up until today, we're not fully aware of what is planned there, where things are planned. But again, an allowance was made so that if it is the road authority's decision to require this access on this property to be closed, that we will have the ability to effectively get to another access point, perhaps with a light on the Foundry property. So again, our site plan was designed, the buildings were sited to allow appropriate space to get an access into that property. So.
I can just follow up on that.
Sure.
So just so I understand, so you're saying if the new development moves forward and they put a traffic light mid-block, say across from Tim Hortons, you could potentially close your access to Exmouth and have all the traffic go up that intersection potentially.
Through the mayor, to deputy mayor. Effectively, that is the case. Again, obviously, if my client has a property, they need to ensure that they have access to it.
Right, right.
However, if at some point in the future, a design from the neighbors come forward, which would allow us to make use of another access, then the village or the city of Sarnia, again, could require us, and that can all be dealt with through site plan agreement language, to use that new access. But at this point, we rely on a traffic engineer to, use best practices, talk to the proper road authorities, and come up with a conclusion that supports this access, this location for this development. So.
I just have one last question. Have you been in dialogue with Malium and their staff about any of these what ifs?
So again, as part of the prescribed pre-consultation process, with the town, with the city, with the province, et cetera, there were no concerns or directions to do that.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that over the years or over this period of time, that both their engineer and the owner have attempted to reach out to the neighbor. And of course, for various reasons, whether it be competition or what, developers tend to be very guarded in what they provide. So, but again, we've done our best to design a project that, in our opinion, will not offend the neighbor's ability to develop their site, nor will it offend, the policies at the end of the day for the village or the province.
So the H1 designation, that's been discussed with the city of Sarnia, the services being provided at home?
Through the mayor too, sorry, I can't see the name.
Councilor Nelson.
Councilor, yeah, thank you. Again, as part of the required pre-consultation process and ultimately the required submission components of a complete application, we do have verification from the city of Sarnia. Staff has that verification that servicing can be provided and will be permitted. We will be permitted to access the city of Sarnia servicing. At the end of the day, I appreciate that each political authority or village or city, they want to ensure that they're servicing their own citizens. And you know, as Mr. Preston indicated, you know, he's proposing a holding symbol to go on the property, which effectively will require the owner, I should say, to sign an agreement with the village of Point Edward, saying that if and when services are available and can be provided, that he will be required to. So there's no opposition to that. But at the current time, to allow this development to go forward, there is servicing capabilities, capacity, which can be provided from the city of Sarnia, or it can't be provided from village of Point Edward.
So my question is, did you ascertain that in advance? Like, I don't know of any conversation with the village before you went and had a conversation with the city of Sarnia about servicing.
To the mayor, if I can ask our engineer, Ken Matney, to speak to that, because he has been involved regarding the.
I just want to know how that happened.
There were discussions with Jim, the clerk, associated with the servicing availability. There were also discussions early on with the fact that there are services available and the land is actually currently serviced from Exmo Street. So through those investigating those connections, we spoke with both the city and council or with staff and verified that we can tie into those services, and we will have an agreement with the city associated with that. That will be on title. We also realize that with this hold pattern, we'll have to deal with things coming forward, and we're prepared to do that.
Thank you.
Mayor, a couple
Sorry.
questions.
Councilor Mandu?
Just on the traffic study. So that was back in 23, you did that, October 23, from what I see from the documentation here. And I know you say you can't think, you don't do on a whole lot on things forward, but we've got a building with 52 apartments just down the road from there. So that's gonna add to the traffic volumes. You know, and just in the last few days, since I've been aware of the traffic study and that, I've done numerous circuits around that corner, and you get 2 cars at that corner, 3 for sure will block the exit. If you get 4, you've blocked your entrance and your exit. And I know you say 2 cars a minute. I think the traffic volume's already higher than that, so I have a concern about that and so. Another thing is a question about the capping. We all know the history of the site next door, Holmes Foundry. They're in the process of doing an EA1, EA2. All we're here, the ones that were done, it looks like it's been led only because it's been railroad property. However, I have a hard time believing there's not been any leaching of some hydrocarbons. It seems like nothing's been found, but that, you know, we know there's stuff on that site, you know, so I'm just questioning how that can be, that it's moved other places, because my understanding is it did move to where the ramp was at the 402 when it was put in. There was an issue there, so, and that's bordering your property, so I'm just, you know, concerned there that it's capping enough when it seems that the other site, it looks like more work needs to be done than that. That's a concern I have. And growing up in the area too, like, you know, just the history of it.
Through the mayor to the councilor. If I can ask Aaron to respond to the traffic question first, as it came first.
Yeah, happy to. Out of curiosity, if I share my screen, is that going to be a challenge for you guys? I don't really understand your technological situation.
Give me a second here.
Okay.
Yep, you should be able to share your screen now.
Great. All right, is everyone seeing what I'm seeing?
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna try to make this as big as possible, so you're not squinting. If you have the report in front of you, you can refer to page 6. And what this does, it simply identifies during the respective AM and PM peak hours what the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual suggests we can expect for a site of this density. So based off of our estimates, in keeping with best practices from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, through which I'm certified as a professional traffic operations engineer and a road safety professional engineer. You can see here the in and the out that we expect in the morning, right? It's an office complex. You would expect more in than out, and that's what the ITE confirms. So in, we're expecting about 25, and out about 5. And in the afternoon, it's out about 26 and in about 13. So if we just take that and we transpose it onto the volumes that we have on street right now. So again, so this translates to a very low split here. The morning is where you're going to be a little bit quote unquote critical for the left turn into the site. Again, that's 25 trips over the course of the peak hour. And so that's much less than one vehicle every 2 minutes, if you think about it, right? Similarly, in the afternoon, because the vast majority of that traffic is coming out, we anticipate that, again, in terms of the queuing, it's inconsequential. When that light goes green, they're going to pull in behind, they're going to continue on. So from a first principles perspective, from a best practices perspective, there's not really too much concern with the proximity of this site relative to the traffic signal. However, as the corridor does get built out, it would be ideal to either restrict this to a right in, right out, or as the adjacent lands develop, to ensure that there is reciprocity with those lands, so that those vehicles, as they try to get to and from the site, so that there isn't a pinch point here, you would simply move that down and via a joint access. So yeah, we'll simply leave it at that. Does that answer the question, or is there another question about how that might operate between the signal?
It does, and I also just want to mention that there is a Tim Hortons across the street, and we know the traffic volume that people use to get there as well, right? And there's gonna be people trying to get out of this location and into the location, as well as people coming from the Tims going to the Tims. So, and that's a busy stretch in most times of the day, just on the way to Tim Hortons and back. So it could impact the left-hand turn into the site, heading east on Exmo.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out one other thing that we observed from the volumes, because I think that was a talking point. I mean, the number of left turns is very, very low. And again, you could take your 4-lane cross section, convert it to a 3-lane cross section. Without me doing the modeling, I've done this so many times, I could tell you that you're not going to have any problems accommodating this level of traffic in a 3-lane cross section. So center to a left turn lane, bi-directional all the way down, and then a single lane to accommodate your through movements. They're very low. Even if you combine your through and your right turns, you're looking at, what is that, 170 vehicles over the course of an hour, a little more than 1.5 vehicles a minute, right? That's a very low demand. That's in your morning. Then you're after, and you're a little higher. You're about 127, 137. So you're at, let's say 260, add this here to 280, right? Over the course of the peak hour, it's still very, very low. So your demands right now are not significant. So for you to withhold approval on this pending some adjacent development that's undefined, I think would be not really, to anyone's benefit. I think there's plenty of capacity at this point to allow for that growth, and then to deal with the proximity, either restrict it to a right in, right out in the future, have that written into the agreements, or similarly reciprocity with the adjacent development. Either one is a good option.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
Through the mayor, to the councillor, to speak to the capping. So the MECP requires environmental testing and ultimately what's called a record of site condition, which is the province acknowledging that the site is acceptable to accommodate human habitants, like residential dwellings. What triggers that record of site condition requirement is anytime that you go from one use to more sensitive use, okay? So in this situation, we're going from a commercial use, of a former perhaps industrial use to a commercial use. And in the eyes of the province, that is not seen as going to a more sensitive use, that's a lateral move. So, you know, due to the concern of staff and ultimately council, of potential contamination off the site, the developer did engage a professional engineer to drill, to do soil samples, and come up with a report with recommendations dealing with contamination. Based on the commercial office use of the site, and I know that was mentioned. I unfortunately don't know if hydrocarbons were found or not, but regardless of the contaminants, based on the findings of that report, a capping plan was deemed to be appropriate in this situation. Because again, we're not proposing a residential use, and I appreciate that the property next door will, if there are residential components within that property, we'll have to do a much greater study than would be required in this situation where you're going from industrial / commercial to commercial. So again, you know, we were not environmental engineers. We do rely on the professionals, and based on the engineer that we retained and ultimately was reviewed the findings and recommendations by the staff, that the capping plan is appropriate in this situation.
So capping and the hardscaping could be enough.
That is
It's gonna be all, like, it's not gonna be parking lot, right? It's gonna be parking lot and building, right? So the, another question then, if I could, the buildings are gonna be at grade, not below grade? Correct, yes, okay, thank you.
Marion, I have two follow-ups that
Yes.
came up in the discussion. One is to Aaron on traffic. Sorry, Aaron. Are you recommending the 3-lane or the road diet for that section? Is that a recommendation you'd be prepared to make?
So I would say unofficially, sure. I mean, without having done the study myself, typically this is something that the road authority will engage me to undertake. We'll review the various trade-offs. We'll do the modeling at all the various intersections of interest and confirm, yeah, this is not going to be a problem. And then we typically provide a design of what that would look like. In these particular cases, the junctions like here would be the most critical, where like for example, at the signal, you can't have a left turn opposing no left turn. So you have to carry that through the intersection. And I've looked at that. And again, there's absolutely no reason why you can't carry that all the way through towards the west through the signal as well. And it does eventually peter down to just one lane in either direction. I think 1 block west of the signal. So.
Good, thank you. And my final question is to David through the mayor. So the buildings are facing to the roadway, correct? And were they initially facing the other way? And I like the way that they're facing now, so that the fronts of the buildings face Front Street. But we had heard that initially the backs of the buildings were going to face Front Street. Can you give some history on that?
I can speak to that,
Yep.
Deputy Mayor, to the Mayor. The initial plan we had the buildings facing Front Street, but closer to the sidewalk on to the west side. But due to parking restrictions and the site and the shape of the lot, we pushed the buildings so that they are now on the east property line, and creating a parking space between Front Street and the building.
Okay, I like that design better because
It's more open.
yeah, I mean, especially with the trail going by, it creates more of a park-like setting along Front Street. So,
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mary.
Just one, can I make
Yeah.
one comment?
Council Monday?
Jay is here. Can he maybe elaborate more on the water? On the services,
Sewage.
sewage?
So the question, Jay, is what would be required of, what would the village need to do to be able to provide sewage capacity to this development?
Basically, we would need a pump station to tie into the force main at the on-ramp, Front Street on-ramp. And that's really it. Depending on the size of the development, would all have to be engineered, but the force main's already there. We just have to tie into the pump station.
Cool. Okay, so you can clarify, so it's not a capacity issue for our pipes, it's just getting the effluent to the pipe and down to the plant. It has to be, it's not gravity fed, it has to be pumped, is that correct?
Yeah, so it is, once you get on the Venetian, it's gravity fed, but to get from the property at Front Street over to Venetian, it's a force main. It would have to be pumped to Venetian and then gravity fed.
And one more, I understand the pump station that we would propose for the entire property is quite expensive, but are there options to create smaller pump stations for a development of this size?
Yeah, definitely. It's all based on the capacity. So if it was only that small development for now, but all small, or there's a small pump station put in. And then if future development happen, you can either put a second pump station in or increase the size of the one that's there.
Okay, thank you.
So that efficiently.
Anyone in opposition? So we do have a letter.
Yeah, there was a letter submitted on behalf of Mallium, sorry, by Taylor Whitney from Zelenka Priamo that council's had a chance to review. Would you like me to read that out or? Just, I think
so-
council's,
So long, but
yeah.
Yeah, can we do some close notes or suggestions?
I would say the summary of it is they had concerns about the traffic impact study and not considering any development at the Holmes Foundry property. And then there was a comment about just the overall development. How would this development of these office buildings on one property affect the development on the Holmes Foundry property? And would they,
Compatibility.
yeah, compatibility, thank you.
your second last paragraph sort of summarizes.
Yeah, I can just summarize, I guess. So given the concerns set out above, our client and his consultants are of the opinion that it would be premature for village council to render a decision on the applications at this time. We kindly request an opportunity to meet with the applicant and village staff to discuss our concerns in greater detail. This additional time will allow us to finalize the proposed development for the site, which is currently in progress, with the intention of presenting it to council to inform the discussions. During this process, we look forward to collaborating with village staff to refine our concept and support the achievement of the long-term vision and objectives for all these strategically important lands. Based on the above is our professional opinion that the decision on the application is premature and not in the public interest. Additional work and studies are necessary to provide sufficient information for council to make a fully informed decision.
Any questions?
I have a
Councilor Aldrich, yeah.
question. Actually, so you mentioned that you had attempted to reach out to them to begin a conversation.
That is what I received from the engineer and the office.
And do you know if there was any sort of conversation at all? Looks like they're looking to have a conversation. And you say you have reached out.
Through the mayor, if I could speak to that. There was some conversation with the group on Holmes Foundry. We discussed some of their proposals. They were frankly all over the map with what they thought they might build, because they really didn't know. It went from high-rise residential to warehousing. So they were waiting to get through their process to decide what they could do. And what we suggested, we've always had the same site plan, and we showed them what we wanted to do on this property with these two commercial buildings. And they had no negative comments to say about what our proposal was. At that time, we had quite a bit of discussion about how about their issues associated with the environmental components of their land. So we tried to work with them, on our property. They declined to help us. So we went down the road on our own way, and we ended up hiring new consultants and coming up with the documentation that you have all seen and staff has reviewed. So we have tried to reach out to them. In the past, they weren't interested. Is probably the simple way to say it.
To the mayor, I have a
Councilor
question.
Mandu?
If this rezoning, OBA is approved, what's your timeline?
We're ready to start very soon. We have drawings in. We put drawings in at the time we put this application for the first building. Once the appeal period is up, we would hope to be able to try to piggyback on that timeline to to get some of our approvals for the first building permit. And then I would say within 2 months, we would like to be in the ground.
Thank you.
Questions?
I won't find, I keep saying that, this might end up to Jared, but, if we approve the rezoning tonight, is there an opportunity to revisit the city of Sarnia providing services at the site plan stage? Or where's that sit? I'm not comfortable with us doing the city of Sarnia deal to make this move forward, so.
Through the mayor. We could go and approve the rezoning and set that, I believe, as a condition. To do that, and then, at the site plan stage, we can revisit that conversation with the city of Sarnia.
And I'm not saying it force, but I'd like to see us do more investigating into how do we integrate them into our infrastructure versus just having the city of Sarnia as the first option. I would rather that there'd be more to be spent on that.
Through the mayor, I just want to make a clarification on that holding symbol.
Yep.
So that holding symbol is currently there. We're not adding a holding symbol to that property.
Right,
It's on there.
okay,
And the zoning bylaw for the village of Point Edward clearly states that that servicing should go through the village. It's just we're at a point where they can't service it right now. So that's why we put the clause and provision into that zoning bylaw amendment to temporarily use the city of Sarnia services until Point Edward can fully service
okay.
that property. And then it's up to the village to decide whether they want to.
Councilor
Sorry.
Dick?
I have another question. That leads me to another one here. Does the village have another agreement similar to this, or with that where the city supplies services to any developments in Point Edward?
There is,
We do have one with the city for a couple properties on Exmo for water. They're still on septic. I think I said, we do have all the services, so water and sewage is at the property. It's just a matter of the pump station, so. Just as an example, Kingsville Arena, they did an addition there. They put in a pump station, a small pump station that looked after just that facility. We are capable of taking all their services. It's just a matter, they would have to put in a pump. And the size just for their building. So there's no reason that we can't service them. The water is there, and so is the force main. It just needs to be pumped in. And most commonly when it comes to new developments and stuff, it typically is on the developer put in the pump station, and then after a 3 to 5 year term, typically the municipality to take that station over.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
To the mayor, I guess I'd just like to bring up the type of structure that we're building, they're office buildings. The only water use will be washrooms. There may be 4 to 10 washrooms, I guess. 20 fixtures associated with the 2 buildings.
Mhm.
It's just not a huge load. And to put in a pumping station for this load is quite an expense. And we would like not to have to go down that road when we have services that have always been on this property and servicing any use on this property up until now. If the Point Edward puts in services, we could then definitely then look at tying into them. And there is, if the buildings go ahead on the Home Foundry site, a much larger home station system will be required. And I think that would be the time to try to deal with this issue.
Did you have something?
Nope. I've asked.
Just a question. So I can't find it right now, but in the letter that came from Malium was a request to have a meeting between everyone. So, my thought was just putting it out there, if we could arrange a meeting in the next couple of weeks to have a meeting, to have everyone talk together about tie-ins and whatnot. And then we would be prepared to look at this at the at our July meeting.
We would prefer to move forward right now. We have reached out to them to have meetings and we've had no success. And I think it's wonderful that they commented. And that now they say they want to have a meeting, but it's just another delay and we have quite a few delays. So we are more than ready to go and we have a tenant ready and waiting for the building and it's becoming a big problem for them. So.
No, I appreciate that input. Thank you.
So if there are no more questions or any more comments from the public or anyone, then there are 2 bylaws on the agenda near the end of the meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment and the official plan amendment.
Thank you.
The proposed bylaw, the proposed zoning bylaw does include a clause to allow them to connect to City of Sarnia services until such time as we are able to provide services through the village. We can potentially pass that bylaw the way it stands and investigate the cost of putting in a pumping station. I have no idea what that would cost. I know the application we put in to the province to put in a pumping station to service the whole Foundry property and other properties, they were, we're talking in the range of, I think, $250,000 to $400,000 to put in a large pumping station. But we can do some investigation on what it would cost to put something like that in. I'm not sure how long that would take to get that information from an engineer, but we can do that. And then make a determination if we feel that that's appropriate to make that investment at that time. Do an investigation. Do we feel that it's appropriate to spend X number of dollars to put in the pumping station required to service this property? And there has been some discussion about the amount of effluent produced and is there enough effluent? Like you put in a holding pit, and how long is that waste going to sit there in order to generate enough to kick the pump into effect? I don't know. We need to have it engineered to determine if that's appropriate or not.
Okay, so we just move on and deal with it.
On a point of order, can we move these 2 bylaws up in the agenda so that our delegations can get a decision and not have to sit here for another hour and a half, unless you're enjoying the show?
Yeah.
I think that would be fine procedurally. I mean, just a motion from council to move those items forward in the agenda.
So
Second.
move.
I'll second it.
Councilor Burgess.
So first is bylaw number 14, which is the zoning bylaw. I'll bring it up on the screen here. So basically, it just says that we're going to rezone the property to the C.2.2.1 with the H, with the holding provision. It allows the uses that have been included all along, and we're adding office buildings. So that's a change in the definition. And then the line right here, 11.4.4 about municipal servicing. So those are the two differences from the existing bylaw, correct, Jared? It's adding 11.4.4 and then adding office buildings to the list of permitted uses.
The mayor, CAO Burns is correct. The only changes are adding the office buildings to, as a permitted use, to what was permitted on the original C.2.2 site. So it's those same permitted uses that go there, and then that extra clause with the servicing. And the reason why we kept the same permitted uses as before is if the office buildings weren't going to work out, if the use just wasn't going to work and they wanted to switch back to, for example, what the foundry said they do, and they wanted to be more compatible there, they can go back to those uses without having to rezone again. It just offers more flexibility.
Sure. Thank you.
Mary Ann, through you, I have a question on 11.4.4.4. Is that just for 170 Exmouth Street, or is this also captured for Holmes Foundry? This is just 170, right?
That's correct.
We're not giving Holmes Foundry permission to
No.
tie into the city of Sarnia.
No.
Okay. Thank
No,
you.
that will,
No.
through the mayor,
Yeah.
that will just be site specific for 170.
Okay, thank you, Jared. Motion.
Yeah. So are you making the motion? Is somebody making the motion? We have a mover and a seconder.
I'll make the motion to pass bylaw number 14.
I'll second that, Mary Ann.
All in favor?
Okay, and then bylaw 15 is basically the same thing. It's changes to the official plan to permit office buildings within the zone.
Down there, do they want to do it?
Hey, Councilor Murphy.
I'll second.
Councilor Montague?
This is site specific, correct? The 170 only.
Yes.
Double check.
All in favor? Okay, that's carried.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for everything.
Thank you to council and staff.
Thanks for answering all our questions.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back up to the delegations.
So up to Joe.
Yep.
Okay, we have a delegation tonight. We have a couple, but the next one in line is Federal Bridge Corporation. And Georgia Decker, we invite you in the bar, this bar. Please.
She was calling me organization very much.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I asked CAO Burns after we had a stakeholder meeting several weeks ago and the village wasn't able to attend, if I could take time and just come and talk to council about the project currently underway at the Blue Water Bridge, just to give you an update on where we're at. So next slide, and obviously who we are. Obviously, the Federal Bridge Corporation has 4 bridges, Blue Water Bridge being one of them. I'm the bridge director at the Blue Water Bridge, responsible for the day-to-day operations. The other bridge is the Seaway International Bridge, the Sault Ste. Marie Bridge, and the Thousand Island Bridge. There's the one bridge is on part.
The only twin.
In last year, we had a rehab project at the first Blue Water Bridge, with 3 months in duration and significantly less work than what we're seeing this year. We had significant traffic delays
issues mostly caused by traffic, cars. Experienced significant delays on the US Plaza, and that's what most of the traffic issues arose. We spent first 2 to 3 weeks of the project adding signs and other traffic devices to deal with the chaos that was being caused by car drivers on the US side. Once we got through that point, traffic tended to move better through the plaza, but by that point in time, truck traffic had diverted to the Ambassador Bridge to approximately 10% of traffic declined and redirected, which was a significant revenue hit, considering the lack of revenue we got through COVID as well. So car traffic never did really return since COVID, and doing that project last year and this year is actually an opportune time with the traffic volume, car traffic volumes being less. This year's project is significantly larger. It's 5 months in duration. We started May 29th. So we're now 4 weeks into the project. What we're seeing this year, we did a lot of media outreach and a lot of lessons learned from last year's project in order to better manage traffic and deal with what we were expecting to see in the longer project. We obviously work with our stakeholders, which are MDOT, which is the Michigan Department of Transportation, US Customs, Canadian Customs, to make sure that everybody has the staffing in place and are prepared for the project. As I said, 1 month into the project, we're seeing traffic volumes that were higher than where we were expecting to be. So if anything, truck traffic is higher than we saw last June or in our project. And it continues to steadily rebuild. Our car traffic is about 75 to 76% pre-COVID traffic numbers. So while it doesn't help the revenue, it certainly helps with us when we're trying to manage the traffic. All 4 stakeholders being us, MDOT, the US Customs, and CBSA, fully staffed. CBSA, Canadian Customs actually have an additional 15 staff that they brought in for the project this year to help better manage traffic. They also have a tentative contract, which has settled things down significantly at the border. So traffic continues to flow. There are some challenges bringing traffic from the United States into Canada, and that's as much about traffic movements that are required after traffic leaves the toll booths on the US side and then have to negotiate onto the first flow on bridge. This is the first time since the bridge was built 27 years ago that it's actually been closed for any more than a day. The project is significant and is well overdue. The work was originally scheduled prior to COVID, but due to revenue loss and other issues, it's been postponed for many years. There's some, the auto traffic, there's just the graph there showing the decline in the auto traffic through the 2020 and back into last year in 2023. As you can see, we're significantly below where we were prior to COVID. If you go to the next slide, and this is the commercial traffic. So as you can see, commercial traffic is and has been significantly strong through this crossing, even through COVID. We actually peaked in 2022, somewhat back again last year, but we won't be at or 23 numbers again this year for commercial traffic. As I said, if you go next slide, Jim. We do work with all the stakeholders, so US Customs, Canadian Customs, Ministry of Transportation, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, because we do have a lot of livestock loads cross through this port of entry. So there is a lot of consideration given to ensuring that livestock loads get expedited through the crossing. So there are ways that drivers know to bypass and get through the lines in order to keep the animals from suffering and or being stuck, especially in days when we have significant events. We've also worked with OPP, Sarnia Police, and the MTO. Last year, what we found was that between MTO enforcement, OPP, and Sarnia Police, their enforcement actually allowed us to open up what we would call a local lane, which is the lane very right. So if you continue down the highway, you can continue right down to the toll booth. The highway, when it was rebuilt 12 years ago, was actually designed with that purpose in mind.
but there was never the ability to keep traffic in the lane. The enforcement that actually occurred between those three agencies last year allowed us to open it and continue to run it today as it was meant to be, and it significantly improved the local traffic flow for car traffic across the border, at least the US bound. So that was good. And OPP and Sarnia Police were actively involved in discussions this year as we work to prepare for the project. OPP has been, as the enforcement agency we deal with, have been very good about ensuring the right vehicles are in the right lanes where they need to be and do so on a regular basis, along with MTO enforcement. City of Sarnia Police have done more than enough by being very visual on social media and in media about their treatment of vehicles bypassing the lane, that we're not seeing a lot of that even this year in this project. And we haven't seen backups this year. We haven't seen backups even to Indian Road this year, which is a significant change from last year as well. We're looking to do all we can to keep vehicles off the village streets, off the city streets. But where our ability to interact with them ends, that's where the OPP and MTO really have to step in, and if they're off the highway, it's city police. But so far this year, it's been good. Next. And as I said, we did do a lot of media outreach. We had, as I said, a stakeholder meeting with some significant parties, and we've been on social media and other forums to make sure that everyone's aware. Our websites are very clear. We have camera views that people can use so that they can get a better idea when they're crossing the border and how and where they can get through. And I don't know if anything's any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just got a comment to make. Living, backing onto the bridge, like the traffic, it looks busy on the bridge, but and when you're going down the 402 there this year, it does look to be a lot. Truck traffic's better managed than it has been last year for sure. And the local lane being open is great. And I know at our last police board meeting, the police spoke after, saying to the local people to stay in that lane, don't try to cross over right into the far lane, because you go between the trucks and that. But I think it's been, there's been a huge improvement there. And thank you guys for what you've done on your end.
Yeah, and truthfully, it's the enforcement side that's really been able to allow all of that to happen. We do remind and thank OPP and MTO and Sarnia Police as much as we can for that, because it has made a huge improvement on our side as well.
Deputy Mayor Grimes?
Through your mayor hand, Adam, we chatted once, Joe, about you used to have a truck lane and then the fast lane for the trucks. And then it's my understanding that since the last closure, you now, if the trucks are backing up, you will actually make both lanes just for all trucks to stop that back. Is that still going on?
So through there, so we always allowed a lane at the tolls where we allow fast enabled, like Nexus, but the trucks to go through a toll lane. Through the project last year, we ended that because we weren't sure we could manage that with the way traffic was prior to the project. When the project ended, we didn't start that again. We did get a lot of complaints, both drivers, companies, manufacturers, because fast enabled carriers are a lot of just-in-time deliveries, and they weren't getting across as often as they wanted to. In January, we reintroduced the toll fast lane for those carriers. So essentially, we have our first lane is our local lane. We have 2 lanes what we call truck lanes, and then the next lane is a car. And if it's that, the fast toll lane is aligned with when CBP is offering a fast lane on their side. And so that 4th lane would be a combined car and fast lane. And the signage on the highway is coordinated between our staff and MTO staff in London. And we adjust the signs on a regular basis depending on the traffic and that. But the toll fast lane is made. We put a lot more parameters around that program than what we had in the past. This year, when we started in January, and we've seen significant improvement in throughput. We're looking at probably somewhere between 6 and 9% of the truck traffic is fast approved. So those trucks then aren't in regular truck queue, which keeps it from backing farther up the highway and expedites through the crossing quicker.
And then with your permission, can I ask an unrelated question? No?
Oh, go
Has
ahead.
there been a change to the grass cutting, Joe?
So we instituted a new landscaping policy 3 years ago.
Yep.
So our contractor is currently in their third year of the contract. So yes, there has been.
Okay.
There are some changes planned, but if some of those will take effect, we are gonna add some additional cutting, and the mayor and the CEO and I talked about this morning. And there will be changes when we renew the contract at the end of this year, but we won't return to the way that the landscaping was done previously. It's cost prohibitive.
Right.
Revenue that we have.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, thank you.
No. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all very
I
much.
appreciate the last time you had your meeting, it was our council night, so we appreciate the opportunity to hear it.
Yeah, as a whole municipality, we have.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a short,
Thank you.
short drive.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Next in our order is Blue Water Power. And we have representatives here tonight, so step up, please. Yes, have you got 2 chairs there? Oh, okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. It's our pleasure, always fun to come and see our friends in Point Edward. So thank you very much for inviting us here this evening. I'm pleased to have Brad Goodhill with me here this evening, who is your representative on our board of directors. I will move through quickly in the interest of your time, but it's Blue Water Power's pleasure to provide a 2023 annual update to our shareholder of the Village of Point Edward. We'll talk a bit about some numbers and look at successes, operations, we'll look at the average bill, affiliate companies, and then we'll close it all up. The 2023 numbers came in exceptionally good, the best ever from many different perspectives. The most important number, 2.2 million hours without a lost time injury. That represents about 8.5 years, and certainly is the most important thing we do in a day, is to send our people home. The consolidated 2023 net income before taxes in excess of 8.1 million. Again, another all-time historic high and something we're quite proud of. Gross revenue, again, hit another record, 140 million. Our income was up significantly over our budget, and we didn't do it on the backs of utility rate payers. In 2023, the average residential bill went up 1.2%, far less than the rate of inflation, which settled at about 3.3%. So in total, we exceeded those budgeted dividends. We gave the highest dividends and the highest operating returns of all time to our municipal shareholders. We reinvested almost $12 million in local infrastructure because our bread and butter in getting you the power is important. Our expenses came in below budget. We hit all-time high revenues. We didn't do it at the expense of the utility bills, and we always say that twice because that's so important. But will we sit still? No. Pleased to say that we plan to knock it out of the park again in 2024 and knock on wood, do even better. We've had this amazing track record and our goal is to keep it up. In 2023, our total municipal returns over 3.5 million, which of course, as our friends in the village know, goes directly through our shareholders to the benefit of our local municipal taxpayers. The Village of Point Edward portion, according to the ownership ratios, is about 120,000 of that. In addition to the municipal cash returns, your equity has also increased significantly in the Blue Water Power Company since you joined back in the year 2000. We have enjoyed annual growth in addition to cash returns of about 14% consistently, which is pretty exceptional when you compare that to typical corporate performance. Blue Water success story, this is what's made it all happen. We have added companies over the years because we knew we couldn't bring you more returns. We couldn't get rich, so to speak, on the backs of our utility rate payers. That was a non-starter. So we added companies. We're on to the next slide, thank you. And many, many lines of business to those companies. We've grown that revenue by about 30 times since inception. But we don't neglect the bread and butter. We reinvest significantly every single year in poles and wires because we realize that we're still primarily thought of as a utility company, and we're really only as good as when the lights are on. We've reinvested $100 million over the last decade in direct local infrastructure and assets. We've added offices outside of Sarnia Lambton. Very important that we can bring money from Sudbury, London, example, back here to our hometowns. We're also proud to be a strong community partner. Success to us doesn't just mean financial success, it also means partnering with our friends in our communities. The end result is to the village of Point Edward, almost 2.1 million in cash returns. That's in addition to your equity in the company, which has more than tripled over time. The total returns over 60 million, the majority to the city of Sarnia as the majority shareholder. In terms of our operations, our current reliability, next slide, please, thank you, 99.98%. That's a very good number. You will never hit 100% because you couldn't afford your hydro bills at 100% reliability because it would just be too much infrastructure required. Pleased to say we also have a standing storm response. We put that to the test today, I guess, just so that I could come and say that this evening. Hit some pretty dramatic winds this afternoon, unanticipated. But once again, the guys and the team came through and restored it very quickly. Brad was just telling me Hydro One still has power outages out in the county. So they sometimes they help us look good. So, and I say that with all due respect. We've reinvested over 11 million. Well, we talked about almost 12 million in local infrastructure. So the hometown utility, in addition to our related businesses, continues to be very strong to the benefit of the village of Point Edward as a shareholder and its residents. We're always asked, what does the average bill do? Because people equate us, of course, to the bill you open up every 30 days. I'm really pleased to say that over the past, since 2016, so over the past 8 years, our average bill has actually decreased. If you look at inflation over that period, it's about 22% inflation over that period, and our bill has actually decreased by 8% over that period. So we did better than inflation by about 30% over that period. So again, responsible, reasonable rates are really, really important to us, in addition to our success in our affiliated companies. Speaking of which, we'll touch upon those quickly. We own Electech Power Services. You own Electech Power Services, which performs technical high voltage work across, actually, I was going to say Ontario, right across Canada. We do jobs from Nova Scotia through to Calgary, Lodin, Quebec. Our services company provides many lines of business, including civil construction. We do our street lights out of there, and certainly hydrovac and our water metering services. We own a few renewable projects, including solar panels, as well as portions in landfill gas. Our fiber company has signed millions and millions in contracts, again, right across Canada and the US. And we're proud to say that we proudly serve our Point Edward municipal accounts with our local provided high-speed fiber internet. Our board of directors are annually reappointed by our shareholders and are absolutely have been critical to our success. As the CEO, there's nothing more critical to me than a good, solid, stable, board of directors that is beyond what you could expect. And we've always had that. I'm exceptionally fortunate. Gary McDonald is the current chair. Margaret Dragon is the vice chair. We said goodbye recently to Steve Bold, who retired, decided to spend more time with his lovely wife. Given that we are at our contractual numbers, according to the shareholders agreement for numbers of directors, there was no need to replace Mr. Bold, especially given all the skill sets that we required. We're very well covered on our board. Brad Goodhill, who represents our minority shareholders, including the village, and is an absolutely exceptional director. I'm not just saying that because he is here. He truly is. So we're very fortunate. You're very well represented. Certainly very fortunate to have the caliber of our board. Makes my job a heck of a lot easier with a good board of directors. Anybody who served in that capacity knows how important a good board is. We'll wrap it all up there. With the 2023 quick review. First of all, we were safe. That's the most important thing we will ever do in any year. We hit all-time high incomes in 2023. I'm proud to say that was after hitting an all-time high net income in 2022. We have this consistent trend of outperforming the year before. I joke that I'll be in therapy one day when I can't say that because I have been consistently able to say that over the years. We significantly exceeded our targeted return, significantly exceeded our growth in equity, our growth in your asset value that plays on your balance sheet. We didn't do it on the backs of utility ratepayers. We were well below the rate of inflation. Very proud to say we had high customer satisfaction ratings. When you give out hydro bills for a living and you have 87% of those contacted say that they're very satisfied with Blue Water Power, that's something that we're always very proud to be able to share with our communities. We provide exceptional community support. That's important to us, that we're looked upon as a valuable and local community partner. And we do it all with some really good storm response, outstanding utility operations. And I'm always proud to say it really has been a true hometown success story, not without a lot of work from an amazing team at the office and a great board of directors and very supportive shareholders. The Village of Point Edward has always been a friend of Blue Water Power, and we're very pleased to be able to serve you in that capacity. As a locally owned, municipally owned group of companies, when we win, you win. When you win, your residents win, and we're really proud to be able to bring that home for you. With that, I will wrap up. I'm happy, of course, to answer any questions. I do want to thank Mayor Hand and Jim Burns for coming to our shareholders update meeting as well. You're always well represented there. So
Questions? I have a comment,
thank
because I know you like it.
Thank you.
So my girlfriend, who lives in Forest, 2 nights in a row last week, hydro one, 2 hours down.
Was it weather related, Marion?
It was during the heat, so I'm not sure what the cause was, but it's 2 nights in a row.
I'm sorry to take such
I know,
joy out
but-
of the misery of others, but that makes me very
It
pleased.
just goes back to the point of with 99.8.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. And you can't replace that local hometown connection, right? Hydro One has great people, don't get me wrong, great boots on the ground, people on the street. But when you have a local hometown connection, it's just in you. And, yeah, we're really proud to do that. So thank you for sharing that. And you're right, it did make me happy. I'm sorry.
And I mean, it was a hot night, no air conditioning, they weren't happy.
No, don't blame them.
So thank you again for coming.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
to the village for also reappointing
I just-
Mr. Goodhill on your behalf. So
So I hope we get the same story next year.
I hope
Because I
so,
mean, I
too.
also get anxious because it's like everywhere. What?
I know, I know. Someone once told me that I couldn't keep doing that every year, so
That's the
I
challenge.
don't like being pulled.
That's the
sometimes, So that's
challenge.
why
Yes,
I am. So thank you. It's our pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks
Ben.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, on the next one, I'm going to leave the chair temporarily. I'm part of the laws, I'm chair of the laws board, and I'm part of presentation tonight. Deputy Mayor Grimes is going to take over so I can join my colleagues. So you want to come up? Oh.
Yeah, gross.
Sorry, I had some. Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mayor Hand, Deputy Mayor Grimes, members of council, staff, those visitors that are with us, as well as those that are joining us virtually. My name is Gary Atkinson. I'm the mayor of Plimpton, Wyoming, and the vice chair of laws. I just had to reflect for a second there, listening to Mr. Decker. Last time I was here, I was part of the Federal Bridge Corporation, so it's kind of deja vu to be back in this room again. So, but today I'm here as a representative from the laws, which everybody knows is our Lambton area water supply system, comprised of the municipalities of St. Clair Township, City of Sarnia, yourselves, the Village of Point Edward, the town of Plimpton, Wyoming, Township of Warwick, and the municipalities of Lambton Shores. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Clinton Harper, our general manager of laws, and of course, your mayor, Deb Hand, is our chair of the board. We're here this evening to speak to you about forming a new way for laws to be able to move forward and research new opportunities to apply for grants to complete many of the upcoming projects that are laid out ahead of us. The current way that we are structured does not allow us to have that capability to do so. For example, since 2016, the town of Petrolia has been able to apply and receive $21.2 million related to their water treatment, storage, and distribution infrastructure. Obviously, there are opportunities that we need to look at to move forward and to be able to capitalize on some of those grants that are available out there. So this time, I'm going to turn it over to our general manager, Mr. Harper, for his part of the presentation.
Everybody, my name is Ben Harper, Southern General Manager for the Land Clearing Water Supply System. And so we're here today because the Laws Joint Board of Management wishes to complete the public and municipal consultation necessary to successfully reorganize itself into a municipal service corporation under the Municipal Act. And so go to slide 3, please. And so why would Laws want to reorganize under the Municipal Act? So the simple answer to this important question. So Laws is not currently established under the Municipal Act, and therefore, from the perspective of the province, Laws does not exist. So, and it's important that Laws is permitted to exist for a few different reasons. And consider that the systems Laws maintained are essentially the backbone for local distribution networks. Arguably, Laws facilities and pipelines are more important to the supply of potable water locally. Yet as a legal entity, Laws is indistinguishable from your municipality. I think we can all agree that Laws facilities are at least as important as the assets that make up your local distribution systems. Unfortunately, due to Laws' current organizational structure being outside the Municipal Act, Laws projects are considered secondary, if not invalid by the province. So why is provincial recognition important? So over the next 20 years, Laws is looking at approximately 145 million in capital work needed to maintain our current level of service and achieve our growth-related targets. Programs developed by the province to assist with capital work are not directly available to Laws due to its organizational structure being outside the Municipal Act. This will become a major barrier for Laws and ultimately its members as we move into the future. Next slide, please. So now to the what. So of the organizational vehicles available under the Municipal Act, the Municipal Service Corporation provides Laws with the greatest level of authority possible the greatest level of authority possible to act in the best interest of the overall system. The future Municipal Service Corporation would be designed to operate similar to how Laws exist today, within a strict framework and under the guidelines established by its municipal stakeholders at time of incorporation. Next slide, please. Or Jim. So Mayor Atkinson spoke of the success the town of Petrolia has had at securing provincial funding for water infrastructure in recent years. So the town of Petrolia owes their success to the fact that they directly own their water assets and have a unified voice of a provincially recognized municipal organization, their municipal council, making an overall and final decision on behalf of the water system. You, as the municipal council for the Village of Point Edward, are also able to wield this same awesome municipal power and decisions that you make. And your municipality also has direct ownership over your assets. By comparison, right now, Laws has neither the voice nor the direct ownership over any of the assets it maintains. The Board of Directors established to govern a municipal service corporation of a newly formed Laws water utility, if done properly, would provide unified voice component of this equation and allow Laws to engage directly with the province of Ontario on matters of Laws. The second part of the equation is related to asset ownership. Jim? So asset ownership is an extremely important factor when considering provincial programs. 2023 Laws stating 93 million in tangible capital assets. These are legally your municipality's joint assets under the current organizational structure. And it's because of this ownership that your municipal council is put in a position where you must call the shots in terms of provincial programs and weigh Laws' projects against the needs of your municipality. In order to reorganize Laws, for the reorganization of Laws to be successful, it would require the transfer of the ownership of the assets that make up Laws today from the benefiting municipalities to the newly formed corporation. So, Glenn? Decision to reorganize is ultimately a decision of municipal council. In 2024, the Laws Joint Board of Management plans to complete the public engagement needed to build the new corporation's foundational documents. At a future date, once the work is complete, the transition may be made only with consensus of Laws members. Your input is needed. So in addition to this information session, one media release, and one public workshop, along with any additional requirements placed upon laws by our members, is all being planned for completion by end of this year. Feedback we receive will be used to develop the new corporation's foundational document. Draft versions of these documents are planned to be available to all members in early 2025. And that's the one. So at this point, Laws request that you consider the following motion of support for this process. Your support and input are needed if this effort is going to be successful. I'm here to answer any questions, and also feel free to contact me. And finally, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Clinton. Any questions?
I
Oh.
have my own.
Oh, sorry.
So it's hard. So the important thing to remember is regardless of how we go to a municipal corporation, we still have the ability to have our same board. We can choose to go differently, but we can maintain our board the way it is today, which is a representative from each of the owners. And that means that if we make an application for any kind of a grant, it goes against the municipal corporation and doesn't impact the individual municipality. So we still have the control through the board. We still have the same service. It's just that we have the ability to apply for grants. We did have a meeting with the minister at during Good Roads. And again, he reiterated that good luck with making a change, because that was the only thing that was going to allow us to apply for grants if we were able to do that restructure. So that's what we're here to discuss, and hopefully look for your support. We've been to Warwick, Clinton, Wyoming here tonight. So we're going to each municipality and talking to them individually, including the city of Sarnia. And it takes a vote of yes from each municipality or we can't move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Atkinson and Mayor Hand and Clinton for your presentation. Any questions from council? Councilor Burgess?
I have one. So is this going to operate in a similar fashion like Blue Water Power?
So through the chair, this structure is about as close to that structure as possible for a water utility type of situation. It would be a shareholder situation. That's how you'd retain control of the board of the utility. Because it's a water utility, and because we sell to municipalities and you sell to the end user, it wouldn't be as separated. We would still have to be intertwined. There's still a government business enterprise designation. We would not be able to achieve that level of separation, and the hydro company does realize that, because they actually, and they own right to the doorstep basically. So it wouldn't be exactly the same, but it's as close as laws could possibly get to that type of autonomy.
Thank you.
Councilor Knock, Councilor Mondu?
I've got one. I remember at AMO a couple of years ago, I went to a presentation that was involving the municipal service corporations. At the time, I didn't really understand, but this is a way a lot of communities are going, right? This is like the way to the future now, to amalgamate, or maybe that's not the words, but when you've got services shared between communities to form this. Is that true?
So through the chair, that laws was actually formed ahead of the municipal act, and that vehicle wasn't available to basically form laws around. Today, if laws had been formed, that definitely would have been one of the main options that the province would have chosen to, suggest to the municipal member that you would like, we should build it in this way, basically.
Sure. Okay, because that's like, I had never, at the time I hadn't heard of it, but then there were municipalities that were there, they were talking about it, and it was like it was something that was coming, right? Thank you.
Any other questions then? No? So there is a draft motion that was on the screen. Just change Clinton, Wyoming to Point Edward, and if that's okay, does somebody want to move that?
It's in our.
Oh, it's in, yeah.
I'll make the motion that the Village of Point Edward supports the undertaking of further investigation of a restructuring of the Linton Area Water Supply System Board as a municipal service corporation.
And then there's a second part of that motion that
And that the general manager of laws be directed to report back findings of the restructuring investigation at a future council meeting.
That was seconded by Councillor Burgess. We'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. I think there was a vote from the gallery as well, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
apologize for the.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, no problem at all.
Appreciate the template.
It forces us to read it, right?
In our notes, it was correct.
Yeah, and it was right in our agenda. It was corrected by,
Glenn, you have a good holiday if I don't see you before Friday.
Thank you, council.
thank you. Take care. See you, Gary.
Yeah. See you later.
Okay, next on our agenda, Mr. Ryan DeVries of BM Rock on our water financial plan.
Put a brief presentation together. I'm just gonna get it in on time, so. It'll be all right. We'll just go through the memo.
Okay.
A lot of information here and a lot of information on your plates tonight, so I imagine most of you haven't got this memorized, so I'll just highlight. Section 1.2, this is the main driver for the water financial plan, is you have your drinking water license renewal coming up for renewal. It expires January 5th, but you're required to have the submission in by July 6th. And one of the supporting documents that you have to provide in that is a resolution from council adopting the financial plan. So that's the driver here. Go to the next page. Under section 3.2, you have just under 900 customers on the system. We'll generally go through this fast. Page 3. Keep going down, table 4.1. This is your water operations budget. So, you can see that annually, and that's based on 2024 numbers. And then moving down, if you split that up into a graph, it would look something like that, where you have a portion for repair, maintenance, administration, staffing, and operations. It roughly shapes out like that. That's page 5. We're getting into the real numbers, the nitty gritty here. So under 4.4, your net book value for the water system is just over $1 million. And it has an annual amortization expense of $30,000. Under 4.5, your reserve funds. So there's 440,000 in reserves for the water system. Important to note here that really you have a combined reserve for your water and wastewater. So what we did was we allocated about 30% of that to the water system and 70% to the wastewater, based on how the value of the assets kind of shapes out. Going down to 4.6. So even though the net book value of the system is just over $1 million, the replacement cost today would be 13.3. Going down to 5.1, you have different rate categories for how your reserves are collected. So 3 different ways. You have the fixed charge for reserve, a metered water usage charge, and then a service charge based on water service size. So those are those 3 there. Five 5.2, looking recently in 2023, there was increases of 5% onto 2 portions of those rates and 50% on the fixed rate. If you broke out the water, so 30% again of those portions annually, it would look something like
around $400 per user. Going to 5.22. Total revenue brought in for the water system is around 800,000. And your operations is around 630,000, so more than operations, that's a good thing. The difference of that between what comes in and what goes out for your operations budget is money that either goes into your reserve or you can spend on capital, so you want that number to be positive. Going down to 6.2, so to come up with a plan, we had to come up with a couple different assumptions to project forward. We're looking 6 years down the road. So the first was that the law's operating capital costs would increase 8% in 2025, and then 4% in 2026 and beyond. Second one is the Sarnia water main operating costs would increase 5%. So those two increases are based off of previous master plan work that was done and historical costs. But for the most part, all of the rest was inflated 3% per year. We assumed growth at 10 new customers per year for the length of the plan. No grants were incorporated, and there was one debenture that was worked in for a new office storage building. Going down to the bottom of this page. If you considered all of the water assets, the current expected life expectancy of those assets is 74 years. But because a lot of them are older, the current remaining life expectancy is actually 22 years. And then top of page 8. So rate of replacement. If you take the replacement cost and you divide it by the money that you have, the difference between your revenue coming in and your operations, that'll get you your rate of replacement. So that's really the basis for how we came up with 3 different options for your consideration. Currently, based on 2024 numbers, you got your 13 million replacement cost divided by that difference that we just talked about is 65 years is what you're currently at. And then jumping to 7.4, page 9. So this is where we generated 3 different plans. Again, the goal of the plan here is to develop a cost recovery plan to ensure adequate funding and operate, maintain, and displace your infrastructure to move forward. These are 3 different options. The first one's, I like to call it more of a status quo, a base case. It's less an option. It's we note in this report, it's not really sustainable. Your rate of replacement actually falls to over 500 years. But it's there as a point of comparison if you didn't do anything. And then option 2 and option 3, the rationale for those, for number 2, is you're targeting by 2030. So by the end of the plan, your rate of replacement matches your average life expectancy of your assets, so 72 years. And option 3, you're targeting by the end of the plan 2030, your rate of replacement matching your remaining life expectancy on those assets, so 22 years. So if you go to the final page, page 10 here, down to the conclusion section, the hope here is that you put forward a motion to adopt one of these plans. You don't have to pick one, you can pick something else altogether, but these are ones that we put together because they make sense for those reasons. And then the other thing to note is you have to provide with your license renewal motion showing that you adopted one of these. The ministry doesn't require that you follow it. So if things were to change in a year or 2 and you went back and you revised it, that's okay. They just want to know that you have one that you're targeting. So with that, I'll get the question.
I don't remember ever having to do this before. Is this a new requirement?
It's newer, the whole drinking water works permit and license thing is new. Newer, 10 years old. I think this is maybe your second time we're doing it, so you might have had to do it once before, or maybe there was
Okay,
some idea that you got past it.
and I just said, I had one other question. Sorry,
Let's just say the last plan was done through Watson Associates.
okay.
And we got the plan properly.
My question, then I'll turn it over to other questions, but the growth assumptions seem low to me. Based on projections that we have currently on developments. Like 10, you said 10 per year?
Yeah, so the growth assumptions 10 per year was based on, there's 160 unit apartment complex on Mission. And then I was told 3 others that are potentially in the works. So using that one of 60 split over 6 years is where we got to the 10. I realize that it might be much higher than that, but
Okay.
that would place it as conservatively low. That only means you're gonna have more.
Okay.
So,
It's not really impactful. Okay, well. Start at the end, Paul. Councillor Burgess, Deputy Mayor Grimes. Councillor Mondu.
Yeah, but I guess this indirectly. More for Jay. The new building that's going in, that apartment building, like the 60 units or whatever, they're gonna be individual meters there? This is just a,
No,
okay,
they have 1 meter.
okay,
My understanding with dealing with the contractors, they're gonna have 1 meter and then they're gonna sell the water to units. It's the same, from what I understand, the same, the gas. There's gonna be 60 separate gas meters in that building. My understanding is that they're selling all the services to the residents.
I'm just curious because Ryan had mentioned that, I thought, did we hit our 60 goal already? Hopefully, right? Selling meters and everything else, so increase our revenue. That's all I have, thanks.
Councillor Marker. No,
Make a
Deputy Mayor
motion.
Grimes, sure.
I'll make a motion that the Village of Port Edward adopts a drinking water financial plan for the period 2025 to 2030. And based on a 5% annual increase in revenue beginning in 2025.
Second that motion.
Oh, any questions? All in favor? Okay, that's carried.
Then we can submit that.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you for being last.
Yeah. Well,
You got to learn a lot about Port Edward.
well, some of it was complicated reading
Yes.
through
Mm.
the calculations too. It was easier to hear the explanation.
Right, so you make it simple for us.
yeah, no problem.
Here.
Okay, number 7 is adoption of the minutes from the May 28th, 2024 meeting,
I'll move. Minutes of the May 28th.
Seconded by-
Adopted, circulated.
seconded by Councillor Burgess. Any questions? All in favor? Okay. Business rising from the minutes. So move on to financial reports, general operations.
I'll move that the total revenue and general operations for the month of May 2024 in the amount of $98,244.40 be approved. And that the total expenditures in the general operations for the month of May of 2024 in the amount of $1,427,869.66 be approved.
I'll second that.
Questions? All in favor? Environmental services,
I'll move that the total revenues in environmental services for the month of May 2024 in the amount of $24.75 be approved. And that the total expenditures in environmental services for the month of May 2024 in the amount of $136,059.09 be approved. And that updated financial statements for the month of April 2024 showing revenues of $399,635.53, and expenditures of $164,709.12 received and filed.
I'll second that.
Questions? All in favor? Carried. Committee reports, operations.
Operations, I'll move that the minutes of the Operations Committee meeting held June 11th, 2024 be approved as circulated.
I'll second.
I could just make a few
Sure.
highlights from the meeting. Under the arena, there's been a rate increase for the next year, and it will include the insurance coverage fees. They were separate last year. So that's a plus.
Starting in September.
Start in September. Public Works, street sweeping's been suspended for now, due to the amount of construction projects taking place here at the village. Sidewalk grinding has taken place in the village, and we could be looking at one section of sidewalk being replaced. And the operations manager is working on that. And there was some concerns brought forward about the condition of the path around Ernest Street, and staff were going to investigate. We also have the operations manager providing information on a hot water tank replacement option for the Optimus Hall. And the operations manager provided an update on the St. Clair Light Street reconstruction update. And then again, staff are hoping to provide an updated price list to council for arena advertising. Hopefully next committee meeting. That's all I've got.
Question?
Deputy Mayor Rice.
So last year we asked about doing a street sign audit for our like street names. Did that ever get done? We were just gonna go around and check the condition of signs and then look at that. And the reason I raise this is the sign at Alexandra and Venetian is not only crooked, but also very, very faded. I'm just wondering if that ever got, I think we talked about sending some students around just to assess them and make some notes. So some of them that face into the south sun a lot really get faded. So
I don't know if it was done or not.
Okay.
I have to follow up. You said Alexander and Venetian is a specific.
is one that it keeps drawing my attention to, yeah, as you turn off Alexandra. And just as last year in the budget, it got cut, but we discussed one of those small street sweepers. And I noticed Sarnia has purchased one. It's a brand new one going down Vital Street today. So I wondered if staff wanted to talk to the city and see how they got around some of our staff concerns about whether it was functional or not, given the size of the hopper and that type of thing, because they've purchased one now. And I'm just curious when in the minutes, it says no updates have for grant opportunities at the Service Club. I don't understand what that relates to.
There's some talk about working with them for improvements at the cenotaph.
Oh, okay. And then another one is the operation manager requested information from the city of Sarnia to educate our residents. Is that on the new crosswalks or?
No, that's on with the
Trails.
yeah.
Okay.
Powered
Trail
vehicles
signage.
on the cities going through this program to get information and allow
Gotcha, okay.
powered
It
vehicles.
wasn't clear on that. Wasn't clear on what's that.
They did a community survey.
Yeah. And I noticed they put a sign at Alfred Street as you go on the trail saying that the city of Sarnia is doing a pilot on our trail. So
Yeah.
quite interesting. And then my last one was about the line and crosswalk painting. I see it is in the minutes, but are we scheduled to paint the lines on the road?
The plan is to have whomever is coming in to do painting on St. Clair and Light Street
Yeah.
to work it in with them.
Okay.
So Lydia's working on it.
Okay.
Final design.
And the crosswalk upgrades to go to the step crosswalks, that's being done at other intersections?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. She's trying to find time to work on that in between all the other work.
All their day-to-day stuff, yeah, so. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Fire committee?
Fire committee, I make a motion that the minutes of the fire committee meeting held on June 11th be approved as circulated. Thank you. I was gonna die on the table. The only item that I bring forward is that we did discuss the fire master plan, and that the chief will be just meeting with the CAO and talking about it more and see where we're gonna go. So
Did they complete that concrete lip?
not yet, no.
I just thought he had talked about,
I think what they're waiting on is they want to park the aerial truck at Public Works during
Oh,
work.
okay,
And they're waiting for Light Street to be
Yeah.
finished so that they can then be able to get in and out.
that makes
quicker.
sense, yeah. Oh, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Environmental Services,
I will move that the minutes of the Environmental Services Committee meeting held June 11th, 2024 be approved and circulated.
I'll second that.
Just a few highlights. So according to MIG, the water treatment building plans are going well, and they are corresponding with the county regarding the building permit. And then we still, as of this meeting, had yet to receive a report for the digester project. Both Jay and Devin from MIG continue to reach out to request a report.
questions? All in favor? Thank you. Last but not least, Finance.
Move that the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting of June 11th, 2024 be approved as circulated.
I'll second that.
I just had a one thing, did we get a second letter out to the residents on St. Clair Street regarding water? Okay. We just had a couple of things on the list. I know it's been pretty busy with a lot of the other issues with that project, so.
I just have two questions, if I may. One, have we added the strategic plan to the task list for finance and admin?
No, it hasn't been on the list, no.
Can we do that just to keep it alive? And then I noticed there was we're writing to the MTO about the sign, which I appreciate. Can we send an email or a letter about, they've done some proactive work at the Front Street overpass, clearing brush and trees and that, it looks great. And I think it's going to be very beneficial to ensure that it's not inhabited. So I wonder if we can just thank them and maybe copy Bob Bailey for proactively clearing out that brush and making it a safer area within the village. Because I think they did a lot of work and cleared out a lot of brush, and it's very open and I feel it's much safer now. So I don't know if we need a motion or is that just
Direction.
yeah, direction. Thank you. That's all.
All in favor? Thank you. Miscellaneous reports.
I'll move that the building permit report update June 6th, 2024 be received and filed.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Committee of Adjustments, meeting decisions, there's two.
I'll move that the Committee of Agenda meeting decisions be received and filed.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, and Police Service Board? Minutes of the last meeting.
I'll move to receive and file with the service board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? We'll move down to communications receive and file 1 through 4.
Also move.
The email watch file.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, the next one, we're moving to new business. First one is where they call it home.
I'll move that if you. So I was during the slow roll, I was speaking to Tom St. Amand, and this was just approved by the city of Sarnia. It was in the press today. So they've identified 3 or 4 homes within the village where veterans or soldiers lived at one point. And from November 1st to 12th, they would like permission to place a sign in the boulevard. They'll place it, they'll remove it, they'll speak to the homeowner beforehand. And it just acknowledges that the home was home to a vet at some point. And it provides a little story about the person. And there's a QR code on the sign where you could snap it and then get all the information on that person. So they're just looking for permission to place the signs in our boulevard, which, because there's a bylaw prohibiting that. So
I'll second that.
Just have a question.
Deputy. Sorry. Councilor Bruce.
I love the idea. I've actually corresponded a bit with Mr. Slater. And I was wondering if there's any way that we could include the names, because there's only 3 names, 2 family names. We have names on our World War II monument, our World War I monument of residents, and then the Merchant Marine monument as well. There's several names on there. I don't know if it's feasible to do signs for all of them, but I would like to see those names get acknowledged as well. And I did ask him how these names of Point Edward residents got on the Sarnia monument, and that there wasn't an acknowledgement of the names on the Point Edward monument. And he gave me a detailed explanation on it. But is there a way that we could try to include some of those other names somehow?
So I guess the question, Mr. Armand and Mr. Slater, you said, or they did the research for this project. I mean, are they willing to do that research for us as well for the names on our monuments? Was that part of your discussion with them?
Well, he did give me background, and he said he has studied ones that we haven't pointed, but the project that he's doing only has to do with Sarnia's monument.
So I mean, I think it's very reasonable to talk to them and see if they can expand their project a little bit. See what the cost is to, I mean, they're obviously gonna have to produce a few more signs. Like, I think that we would like, if we were gonna be more involved, I think we'd want the program to be consistent, that the signs for people on the Sarnia monument look the same as any of our monuments. So it's kind of a uniform program. So I'd like to involve them in kind of developing the material that goes on that, you know, on those signs. So I mean, I think it's a great idea.
What about
To
including
expand
the Point Edward Service Club as well?
Sure,
Because
yeah.
we were talking about maybe them being able to secure funding with regards to our cenotaph. But is there a way, because I know they have a list that they work through during our Remembrance Day ceremonies. I know I drive through a lot of small towns, and I always like the ones outside the Legions where there's a flag. I'm not suggesting we do exactly that, but every small town that I go through, especially in November, they always have something in their downtown, or I don't know if we could even do it along in front of the service club on their boulevard, perhaps. I don't know, but at least have that conversation with them.
So I can make the motion then to read that we approve their request to place signs within the boulevards, and that the CAO be directed to ask that names on the Point Edward monuments be considered for inclusion in the project, and then move that forward.
To the mayor, just on that one, I did look, and none of these 3 names are on our monument. I did look, and we're talking about 25 that, and my concern was similar to Paul's, is that signs go up on somebody's boulevard and it's like, well, what about my relative? You know, what about my relatives? This is a Sarnia-based project, right? That just happened to have. So that's my concern, is that people, you know, feel slighted or whatever, that, you know, my family member is important as theirs, right? So if Point Edward can have some kind of initiative, that'd be wonderful.
Well, I'll be honest, my uncle's name is on the World War II monument. That's my dad's oldest brother, and
well aware.
You know, so I've walked through that on my way to the arena as a small child, carrying my skates to go skating. So I've looked at that my whole life living here. So
yeah.
Do a second then?
Sure. I thought we had a seconder.
Or did we?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Just might have to amend.
Yeah, so we think,
Allow that amendment.
so you're okay with that? The direction to see, okay.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Number 2, purchase of
okay,
additional speed
Okay.
tracking.
So I threw this one out there. I think the 2 speed signs that CEO Burns has acquired are very effective, especially compared to some of the others out there, between the messaging and the color coding and the tracking. I think the the reports we get from our operations manager are very valuable. I think Paradigm proved to us that Venetian Boulevard is a trouble area, both for speed and for the amount of traffic. And I'm just asking that we give consideration to approve the purchase of a third sign for that area now, and ask staff to find somewhere to find the money out of the budget, either reserves or a positive variance, and get that sign up, because we have moved a lot of traffic over to Venetian with this St. Clair project underway. And I just think that we owe it to that part of it. And that will give us a speed sign almost on all three ways coming into the village on our fastest roads. And I personally, I think I've noticed positive impact from both signs. I see people slowing down. I see the brake lights being tapped. I think it's effective, and I think we owe it to that part of the village to provide some speed data management and some incentives to slow down. I'm just asking that we approve that and let staff find the money.
Questions?
Do we have an approximate number? How much should this be cost?
55 to 6.
Last one was
5,500 to 6. There's stuff that was ordered, so there are brackets we've ordered so that we could move this. Move the current device from one location to another and leave the brackets to move it back and forth. So in theory, we would not, if we were going to buy another one and put it somewhere permanent, we'd already have the brackets, so it should be a little bit less. I would think in the 55 to 6 would be in that range. And what we would likely do is just add that. We would put that, if council wished to purchase another one, we just put it in the same budget line. That budget line would be over, and it would just, you know, we'd hopefully at the end of the year, there'd be enough savings in other programs, other budget lines that, you know, it wouldn't be overall over the budget.
I can just make a comment.
Gene nodded.
I think the reason it's on Front Street now is during the construction period, and the plan is, I think, believe with operations to move it to Venetian. So that, you know, we ordered one. It kind of was tagged for Venetian. Now it got the front. It's gonna end up on Venetian. And just, you know, for Jane's understanding, last year we did have 2 in the budget and we caught 1. So I would say leave it as is and defer this purchase to the 2025 budget.
The reason I bring, if I may, to bring this up is the speeds we're seeing on Front Street. I wasn't aware that they were that fast, and I'm seeing some pretty high numbers. And I think that to remove it, we're just gonna allow those speeds to return. So I think it should stay there.
I was of the mind, when you and I had that conversation, I said there was speeding on Front Street.
Yeah.
I heard it from people, I've seen it,
Yeah.
and I don't support moving off of Front Street.
I agree.
So it was always, my thought was we were buying another one next year. But if you want to move it forward, I can support moving it forward, but the intent was the third one was to be purchased next year. Councilor Burgess?
I like these devices because you see it traveling. I drive down Michigan Ave just about every day. And I know when someone is coming through the intersection at Front Street and they see that sign light up monitoring their speed, it definitely has an effect. My only, and I'm saying I am in favor of another device, but I think my concern is more about Louisa Street and potentially Arthur Street, especially when kids are crossing those roads to go to school. I know I read that traffic study, and they said those, what they call them, arterial roads that lead into typically have faster speeds, and there's not as much pedestrian traffic across. I always think about the times if I'm traveling down Arthur Street or Louisa Street and there's a kid that's trying to cross at Alexandra or Charles. To me, that it would be a greater need than Venetian Boulevard. But I don't know. I'd like to get more of them eventually, perhaps in next year's budget. But I wouldn't mind having another one.
But we are making changes on Louisa Street as part of the current project.
Yeah.
And that was to address the traffic. Um,
And these are mobile, right?
The
We
ci-
can move them.
Yep,
the
technically.
city of Sarnia has bought, I noticed several new ones up with nothing underneath. So I'm not sure that they get any data. It's strictly like a Vital. There was one on Vital the other night, and they're on their poles, on their hydro poles. But it's just the speed with nothing underneath, like messaging. So I don't know if they're cheaper or you don't get any value from the data.
Depending on the units, they might not have.
Yeah.
Serviceable data.
Yeah, I think it's just
I
messaging.
think they're just, yeah, just the.
Speed, yeah.
Do we have access to that trailer anymore that we would
It's,
pull around
to put-
as it's done?
it doesn't, the tracking part of it does not work at all. I'm not sure if the,
Radar part.
like, yeah, I don't know if it still displays the speed or not. I don't know. We haven't used it for a couple of years.
Was that owned by the OPP or did we?
No, it was owned between us and the bridge.
Okay, any other questions? So the motion, you want to read, the motion is to move forward now?
Yeah, just a motion to
Yeah.
purchase a second,
Yeah.
an additional unit.
Okay, all in favor?
Is there
Sorry.
a seconder? I don't know.
I don't know if it was.
I'll second it, yeah.
I thought there was.
I thought there was two, but
I just don't know.
I didn't.
Yeah.
maybe not, but I will second it.
Okay,
As long as operations can use it.
all in favor?
Thank you.
Next year's could be for a different street then.
And they are mobile, like, I
Yeah.
don't think the intention was ever Venetian. It was Venetian in front, moving it back and forth between the two, so you can get extra brackets and you can move them. There is some hesitation at the start about moving them, but they're fairly bulky, but they're not heavy. They're fairly easily moved. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. We're maybe not wanting to move it off the front, but it can go back and forth between multiple locations, so.
The next one is the Canadair Park Master Plan comments I brought forward.
Download version, sorry.
That's okay, I added this late. I think everyone's seen social media and is aware of what's going on with Canadair Park and, keeping in mind it's a master plan. It could be 10 to 20 years before anything even moves forward, but at the same time, as the very close proximity to the park, anything they do can directly affect traffic flow, pedestrian flow, just how we live. So what I was looking for is that we send out a constant contact all our residents, encouraging them to participate in the Sarnia Speaks survey and to provide comments, and ask that we send a letter to the city of Sarnia, just reminding them that we're a neighbor to the park. We're the trail system is shared.
Yeah, on Front Street.
Yeah. And we don't want to extend it, but that there's a lot. Now, I know this was a Toronto consulting firm who came up with ideas, maybe not knowing a lot of this, but at the same time, I think we need to reinforce to them that we are a very engaged and very important partner in the success of the changes to the park. So that's all I'm asking for, is that's sort of the motion, if you can get a motion out of that.
If I could, I'd just like to have the city be aware that anything to do with any of their boundaries, we're informed. Centennial Park, there's a master plan there. It borders on the village.
I was invited to attend Centennial and I did,
But, okay.
when they did the master plan.
The noise bylaw they did for the next thing in July, the concert. Talk to us before, because all the sound comes our way, right? A lot of it, like, be aware of their neighbors. We can make them aware. Because they're a neighbor of us.
Actually, that is what surprised me, because when they did the Centennial Park master plan, I got a request to attend and participate, and I did, and then not for Canterra, which we have more touch points, but
Yeah,
anyway.
and that survey's due Friday. It's on
Yeah.
Friday, because there's a meeting next Tuesday. On the results or something already, so.
Oh, is it tomorrow then?
Great.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
All in favor? Okay,
And that's it for me, for your business.
I got a couple things. Just I wanted to say thanks to staff and council for contributing to our Canada Day celebration by serving cupcakes and pizza and helping out. Our next event locally is Mackinac on July 20th. The Rotary will be having their pancake breakfast down under the bridge as they normally do. And then the other function is down towards the casino on private land, which is the Heather Martin, her group that are raising money for supportive housing. They're expanding it a bit bigger this year to have more things to for the public, and the hustlers will be bringing in their demonstration with the tanks and whatnot, and they have first line responders invited, so it'll look a little bit bigger. And but again, they're two different functions, both Rotary, and they're different, so it won't impact like the breakfast, which starts much earlier. Canada Day is the parade, and then the events in the park and the fireworks. Parade starts at 11:30. They are collecting cans for the Inn of the Good Shepherd, if anybody remembers to take a can. I volunteered the village to host the county council barbecue September the 4th. They were looking for volunteer. We haven't done it for a few years. I recently attended a dinner at the Optimist put on, that was steak fry with 50 people, and it went well. You stepped outside. They had their big grills, so they can handle that. So if you guys want to know, the council of the host committee, the host community gets invited. So it's September 4th at the community hall. And then just wanted to, Taff and Gary Lounsbury recently went to France. So for the July 14th celebration, Taff's uncle was honored. He was shot down in a small town near Vimy, and they had asked for something from Point Edward to take to the celebration, and I gave him a flag, and the flag was put up in the town quite prominently, and Taff was able to give a speech about our community and thanking them. This is a picture of the monument to her uncle, who for his service and how he was shot down there. So that was kind of cool. I think that's all I had. Anybody else have any?
Their vintage in the village next Friday night. Or
Oh,
this
sorry,
Friday.
this Friday, thank you.
I
Car show.
wanted to ask too if we'd successfully set up a transit for that. Okay, so
I'm not sure how we're gonna send a constant contact thing out, because our Facebook page is shot right now. And we're gonna charge for residents, we're gonna charge $1, and it'll be on, so it'll be the normal village route, starting at Northgate and traveling through all the stops in the village. And I think the last bus is gonna leave park at 8:45 or something like that. So it'll be $1 in and $1 out instead of the $3 regular fee. So hopefully that'll help to alleviate some parking congestion down the park. And if people, so it'll be all the stops in the village will be hit, and then if people from the city want to come, they can get on at Northgate and move to the village.
could you reach out to Michelle at Sarnia Transit and ask them to share this information through their Facebook page,
Okay.
so that we can hopefully drum up some use. Short
And-
notice use, but
You can still use constant contact, though, can't you, Jim?
Yeah,
without
yeah,
Facebook?
we will,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah, we'll do that for
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
And just a reminder, it's Alzheimer's is the charity of choice for Friday's event. In case I forgot.
I wasn't gonna go there.
I know, I've used it a couple times already. Okay, anybody else have anything forward?
Got a couple things.
Thank you.
Good news first, just a reminder that this second installment for taxes is due on July the 2nd.
Mhm.
Want everybody to remember that.
Thanks, finance guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my committee, so.
We get an extra
remember.
day because of the holiday.
Yeah. I want to just mention Dylan O'Ray, his professional baseball player from Point Edward. And he just got another promotion to the AA level with Milwaukee Brewers organization. I know when he got drafted, I asked the mayor to send a letter recognizing that. And that's his third promotion through the organization, and a Point Edward kid who went to Bridgeview School, played minor hockey here. And I know a lot of people in this community are cheerleading every step he gets to make. So I just wanted to mention that. And I believe tonight is Bridgeview's grad.
It is.
You know what? I didn't get invited this year, but we did give the gift bags. I took them over
Yeah.
last week.
I
It's
just know a few
14
kids
students.
that are graduating tonight, so I thought it'd be
I
worth
didn't get invited.
mentioning.
Yeah, I took 14 bags to the school last week. for the grads. Thank you for remembering that.
On the note of the school, the grade 1 teacher, Miss Maneri, announced that she will be retiring after this year. Mentioned that she's been teaching at the school for quite some time, and so a lot of residents will have had her as a teacher.
Mhm. Okay. I lost my place.
Confirmation bylaw?
Yep, sorry, confirmation bylaw. Number 13. Who's taking it?
I'll take it. Nobody else will.
Take it
Bylaw
away.
13 of 2024, being a bylaw to confirm the resolutions of Point Edward Council, which were adopted up to and including June 25th, 2024. We read it first, second, and third time, and finally passed on this stage June 25th, 2024.
Second that?
All in favor? German? Council Burgess? Council Noctor? All in favor? Thank you.